right, we're back again. We're back in my field, and we are going to do a little bit more work on this tailwind. I'm very fortunate that this field that I come to as often as I can has pretty predictable wind. And from this side, that means I have a tailwind. And we've covered a lot of tailwind stuff, but I'm going to do some more shots to see if I can get a little bit more details to show you again. And I'm going to try to do a better job of telling you as a right-hander too. I'm hoping that you can mirror what I'm discussing as a right-hand player. So what I have today, I actually have this pointed at these soccer fields. And if I'm standing right here and I'm throwing to those soccer nets, this wind is coming behind me and it is going left to right, just a little bit, but it's tail, which means that the wind is coming behind my back and it's going this direction. It is a little bit left to right. Very important. And like again, mirror it that if you're a right-hand player, you're standing here and that wind is coming behind you from right to left. I will show you as a right-hand player what I'm talking about when I'm trying to accomplish the best results with a tailwind that's slightly right to left. A straight up tailwind, you can make the adjustments for that. The reason that I kind of am putting myself as an exact left to right tailwind for me is because it's easier to understand what I'm doing with the disc and how I'm explaining it to you, knowing that it's coming behind me and going a slightly different direction. So the reason I pointed this camera this direction and I'm doing that left to right is because if I'm on a tee pad and let's say I'm standing right here, but the tee pad's not following me here, it's actually going straight down this direction, I will turn myself on the tee pad and I will put the bottom of this plate instead of, if I'm just going, it's straight behind me instead of going like that, because I will turn and put myself into more of that tailwind. And there's a very good reason for that. I want everything to get under this plate. I never want anything hitting the top of this plate until the very end of its flight. And the reason for that is what's under the plate, this is where you're maximizing the wind. This is super important. So as a left-handed player, when I throw with a left to right tail, I'm throwing this on a slide hyzer, right? And I'm making that wind stay under here. If I throw it flat, it's doing this. Put it on a slide hyzer, and I'm going to get up there because as I throw that on a hyzer, I'm throwing a little bit into that wind coming behind me, it's doing this. It's pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, right? I throw it on a hyzer, the wind hits it right away and picks it up. Now you have to mess around obviously with your stabilities of your disc. A neutral or a understable, slightly unstable, not too unstable, that's the disc you want, because when you get up and you get that plate under there, the very first thing that happens with wind on an unstable disc is it wants to go the opposite, or it wants to go the same direction as your arm. So as a left-hand player, if I throw too flippy and the wind gets here, it's always going to do that. It is always going to pull me away. That's just the nature of an unstable disc. An overstable disc, if I put it in there and that wind is coming here, what's it going to do? It's just going to turn it faster. So you're going to get the quicker dump. So as a right-hand player, wind behind me, right to left, same thing. I'm putting that disc, wind's coming here, behind my back, right to left. I want to throw it on a hyzer with an understable or a stable disc so that when it gets here and we start, it's already starting to push, when that disc starts slowing down and it starts falling, when it falls, more wind, more wind, more wind. That's what we want. We want everything under this disc. Everything that hits the top, unless that's a specific shot that you're throwing a stall, you're throwing something where you're almost throwing it in a way incorrectly, but on purpose. If you want it to stall out, that's a completely different shot. Cover that in another video. I'm not actually excellent at that shot by any means. I give all the credit in the world to these people who know how to throw these great stall shots. We're talking about maximizing the wind underneath this disc to get it to push further and to stop this big dump right, big dump left. Like I'm looking at this shot here, and I'm looking at that soccer net down there that is about 3 to 320, I'm not even trying to throw further than that. I'm just trying to throw putters and mid-ranges because this is my training in the field, and I'm specifically training with wind. When I go to a tournament or in a league on a course which is open and I want to score well, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for control, and I'm looking for the wind doing the work. All I'm doing is putting that disc where it's supposed to go so the wind will do all the work for us, instead of us saying, well, it's a tailwind, I just have to throw understable. That's not always the case. Or it's a headwind, throw your most overstable stuff. It doesn't matter what stability you throw. As soon as the disc as soon as you stop getting air under the disc at whatever stability you throw, that's where things are unreliable. So that's what we're gonna start doing. Again, I'm gonna take a little bit more time and just throw these shots because it's part of my training, so that when I get to a place that's windy and I'm playing a tournament, I'm not that guy that turns to you and says, oh man, I hate playing in the wind, because that guy is not your competitor, not if you learn how to throw in the wind. So we're gonna start out, I haven't thrown anything yet at all. So I'm gonna just try to throw my putters and my mids, and I'm gonna keep putting it, for me, I'm gonna keep putting it on that slight hyzer with a stable to understable disc, so that when I put it on that hyzer and I'm trying to throw higher than normal, you certainly don't want to be low, because then it does all the work in a shorter amount of time. Throw it up high on that hyzer and let that wind take it and pull it and push and push and push. So that's what we're starting with. Woo! It's actually a pretty good throw for the first throw of the day. Now this one is my harp. It's definitely overstable. I'm only doing it just to get in a few of these smaller discs as my my training. Again, it'll show you. It'll show you that when you put this on the same hyzer, it's going to get up and higher and higher and higher. It's just going to dump quicker because it's overstable. It's a super calculated shot because I understand what the wind's doing. I actually threw that disc. I'm telling myself, I'm throwing it completely to my left. I want to know that it's going to land right in the center every time. That's what I do in training in the field, especially with wind training, because I want to understand when I have this 7 to 9 mile an hour tailwind, if I want to get to that space right there in the middle, well, clearly I'm not going to throw it straight at it. The wind is going to do something to it. So that's what I'm working on in the field. Throw some mids now. With the training, wind training, if you have a mold you love, my particular one happens to be Truths. They are the same disc, but they are all slightly different versions of stabilities. I will tell you in the field, start with your understable and stable versions of that. So with Truths, for me, I have slightly understable, absolutely stable, and ones that are slightly overstable. I don't ever start out with the most overstable ones because I'm not warmed up. I like to be a little bit warmed up because then I understand that when I throw that overstable one, if it was my first one and it just panned out really quick, I'd be like, well, it was my most overstable. So save the overstables for when you're a little bit more warmed up. just understanding that we want to get into the wind and a little bit higher. When it slows down, we're getting it to do this turn where it's just pushing, because we don't want it to just stay there and get hammered by the plate. So that's what I'm learning as I'm playing with this wind. And again, I'm throwing the same molds. I'm throwing a lot of truths. Don't come into the field and play with 30 different discs. You'll just convince yourself that you've done something poorly and something better. It's not true. Try the same molds. Even come here with all of your putters and then try that in the wind. Whew, that one's dumping. That's overstable. So we'll try my most understable one, see the difference. We'll see that one's a bit of my more overstable truths. We want to get it to flip up, and we want it to stay flatter for as long as we can, so that when it dumps, then it does that last carry. That's like a disc when you see and you think the wind is creating these drops. That's because we've gotten up to a certain point and all of a sudden you get that last big air. That's because we flipped up and now it's doing that, and that's what we're looking for. Ooh, we might actually have to force it over today. I'm gonna try it with a flippy putter and see if we can get it to go up a little bit more. So right there is a very perfect example. It's a flippy putter. That flippy putter, because I put it on that hyzer and it flipped because I was going into this wind, it's a tail, but it's still pushing. Put it on a hyzer, it's flipping up and it's staying up there. And that putter that I threw probably is the same distance as my best mid-ranges that I threw, because it's flipping up and it's getting all that air underneath the surface. So I'm gonna try with some of my flippy fairway drivers, like a Pro Leopard. That's a decent shot. And what I was thinking about when I was trying to get that wind under there is that as I was standing here, and this is a good thing to notice, you can do a couple things. You can just hold up a disc and actually see which way the wind's going if you just hold it on your finger. For me, I've gotten pretty good at standing, just feeling it right here on the back of my neck. And what I noticed when I stood and lined up for this is that when I stood here, I noticed the wind had changed. There was absolutely straight tail behind my back. And that is what's making my first few that I'm doing, they're getting up there, but they're actually just kind of stalling out. That disc, I put it a little bit more left. So if I was on the tee pad, I'd actually be going to the left, because I want to hit that wind. I want to get it up there, and I want that wind to pick it up and start doing this. Same thing for the right-hand players. If you got that right-left, you want to throw it and get it to go up, and then it'll start turning, because as soon as the wind gets here, it's going to want to do that. That's what we're looking for. We're getting the wind to do the work for us. Let's see. Now my orc is just neutral, but I'm going to go a little bit more to the left to get it to carry. Now granted, they look like hyzers, but if I were to throw that disc flat, I wouldn't have got the distance. I'm gonna try to, what else do I have? Oh, I've got an eagle. The eagle is a better representation because it's a slower speed disc. I'll put that on the same thing, and we're gonna see it, because you can feel it. Like when I'm here, if I hold it flat, no resistance whatsoever, when I flip it up to what I'm talking about, it's trying to take this out of my hand. Again, that disc is 50 feet further than the higher speed disc that I just threw. It's almost the same neutrality. It's closer to that 0 mark. It's a slower speed disc, which means I'm overpowering it. If I overpower it with that wind, it's flipping it up more, it's going higher, and then when it dumps, it's carrying further. I threw that hardly any faster than the 10-speed disc. Difference at 3 speeds, it's a lot further. And that's not just because I'm overpowering the disc. It's I'm getting it up and I'm letting the wind do that work. Now this one will be tough, because I love turns and I could get it to do all the work, but a halo turn is a little bit more overstable. I'm actually going to probably try to get this one. God, that wind is really doing it. I mean, you can see it. I'm going to try to get it actually up over to my left to get it to come back like that. That's a really good shot. I knew I had to throw it faster, and I knew I had to throw it a little bit flatter. Again, we're not crushing distance here. I'm putting all those discs right where I want, mostly because I'm lazy, and when I go pick them up, I won't have to do any searching. But if you're doing this in the field, which is where you need to do this work, we're looking to throw every shot with what we have in our bag, hopefully more of the same molds, at least for the training part. Maybe you don't want to have 8 truths in your bag like I do, but when you're training, try to do some of the similar molds, or at best, the molds you throw over and over and over and over again, or the discs that you always throw. Don't come to the field and be like, dude, I want to bring 25 drivers here and see what they all do. That's a different training. That's not wind training. That's muscle memory, maybe, if you want. I'm doing the same thing. It's actually, a lot of people would say it's boring. I happen to love training. I'm doing one specific thing out here. That's tailwind for me, left to right, for you, right to left. We just rinse and repeat. That's a great destroyer. All right, my really overstable one, Dynamic Disc Defender. I know with this one, tailwind, it's gonna fight me right away. It's gonna wanna dump right away. I'm actually gonna take this one and I'm gonna throw it as fast as I can, and really almost as flat as I can, and actually not too nose up. I almost wanna get it to go down, because with this particular disc, if I put it on the same hyzer as everything else, as soon as the wind gets underneath it, it's overstable. It wants to come back really quick. I'm gonna put it up flat, and I'm gonna try to not give it all this angle. I'm gonna try to go like that, so that I have a better chance of it actually pushing in when it dumps to do that. Again, I'm looking for that same spot in the field. I know this is more overstable. I'm trying to figure out what I need to do when this is the disc I need at the situation when I'm playing a tournament. They're all next to each other. That's a great thing. Again, get the wind to work for you. Get it under the plate and put it at the angle. Go more into the wind if you want it to get it to flip up more if you're using understable. We're looking to get from A to B the way that we want to get there. We don't want to say overstable is for headwinds and understable is for tailwinds. That's just a very elementary or intermediate way of thinking in regards to the wind. We want all the wind under the plate all the time. I think I'll throw, well, I got one more Firebird, now I better clean up. Woo! She's overstable. That was not a good throw. But here's the thing, I would never throw that in this wind. That Firebird is not what I use. You know, you saw, I had 12 other discs to do the right thing. I think we'll clean it up. It's good seeing you again.